1, 2, 3. Let's separate waste. People. Yeah. Let's separate our waste.
On behalf of Webster University Ghana and in partnership with Friends in Need India Trust, PEN, Environment Friends Society EFS of Bahrain, and Waste Segregation and Composting Movement Ghana, would like to welcome you all in our webinar to mark a decade milestone from 2012 to 2022 of the progress made on Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 6, Water and Sanitation, and SDG 13, Climate Action, with the theme, Going Green for a Cleaner Accra 2023 with the Japanese Embassy, trade-offs between Citizenry, MMDAs, and SDGs. Thank you, Webster University Ghana, for hosting this webinar, with a special thanks going to the Eco Club members and to the IT department. I would like to welcome every participant for this webinar that seeks to connect climate action to the Sustainable Development Goals. Poverty reduction has a direct link to commitment for local level coordination mechanisms in every nation to conserve biodiversity and sustain healthy and lively ecosystems. However, clean water and sanitation go well beyond the targets under the SDGs because, in terms of sanitation, we all generate waste, which is the byproduct of our existence. As we all know, we have only one planet Earth, which is our home. And for Earth to sustain life, it needs abundance of safe and healthy water. My name is Dr. Khawla Al-Muhannadi. I'm the president and founder of the Environment Friends Society, EFS Bahrain, and will be your co-moderator with Professor Shaima Ramani from UNU Merit, taking you through this 90-minute session, same time as we used to watch football. Shall I remind you, if any of you was in our neighbor country, Qatar, following Messi getting the World Cup, celebrating it with joy and pride, you will know exactly what can be achieved in 90 minutes. Our current production, consumption, and wasting linear patterns are responsible for natural resource depletion and environmental degradation, as well as greenhouse gas emission. Hence, a climate mitigation and adaptation measures of SDG 6 intersect closely with the other goals, since the remedy for our every consumption and disposing linear economy, Goal 12, focuses on circular economy principles of matter and energy conservation and waste minimization. This is the reason we're gathered here today, Goal 17, to see what has been done in the past ahead of 2030, which is just 7 years away, to guide us today to leverage on vast majority of actions, setting up industries and waste buyback centers through innovation. Goal 9, to have sustainable cities and communities. Goal 11. The Japanese Embassy in Ghana is setting an example by putting into practice waste management from source, an example that might be considered as a small step from the perspective of other places, but from Ghana and beautiful Accra, this is an example to follow. And that in itself is indirectly a climate action. Goal 13. Because we will be protecting marine life from land-based activities and pollution, which is the heart of the 2019 United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution 12, Unit EA4L12. And as each one of us would like to say, in the Middle East and Africa about our countries, Ghana is indeed today the center of the world. And so whatever happens in beautiful Accra could be used as a model. Hence, the outcome of this webinar could be used as a model for other developing countries for after we present a report to UNEP. Thank you for joining us in this webinar today, and we look forward to your active participation. Let's all learn from one another and work together to be better citizens of Mother Earth. I would like us all to enjoy a short film that has been put for us representing what happened with the Japanese embassy. Let's enjoy the film about the Japanese embassy action for 4 minutes, prepared for us by the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, GBC. Please.
At the table this morning, I've been joined by a lady and two gentlemen who are experts in this field, and they'll be sharing some few thoughts with us. I'll start with the lady because women, and she is the president-elect of the Association of Spouses of Heads of Missions, Mrs. Naomi Suzuki Mokizuki. And she's here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I wanted to say good morning in Japanese, but
Ohio.
Ohio, yes. So, Ohio.
Ohio.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Listen, waste management is such a touchy subject. I was just talking to you earlier on about how we always say cleanliness is next to godliness. We think that we are clean people, but we cannot be clean if we are not treating our waste the way it should be treated. I'll start with you, Mrs. Naomi, and I'll ask you this question. For Japan, when we talk about waste management, it's almost like the holy grail, because you've done it so well. How were you able to get to this point? Did it get as bad as it has got in Ghana, in Accra? Did it get that bad?
Yes, actually, yes. We did have a very, very bad situation with environment, and several diseases broke out, and it's all because of our very fast growing economy. Right after the World War II, we had to build our nation from scratch, from nothing to where we are now. And in course of developing, of course, came the side effects. And we did, a lot of damage to our environment. But, human beings are able to learn from bad lessons. And so I am here to share with you, my team, what kind of bad experiences we had, and then I don't want Ghana to repeat what we went through.
This is not your first time in Ghana. How long have you been here, and what have you been doing in furthering this cause that's so dear to your heart?
This, well, actually, I happen to be married to a diplomat, and we were here 10 years ago, or 13 years ago to 10 years ago, and my husband was a deputy then. So we lived in Ghana with our son as well, high school going son. Okay. And we are here again after 10 years, and I do see a lot of changes. Ghana has been developing, and I see so many high buildings, hotels, restaurants, very trendy places. So that is the surface of Ghana with beautiful development. But together with it has brought about a lot of environmental issues. And I'm here because of my husband, but part of my heart really belongs to Ghana. I love Ghana so much. And while we are here, we are not here forever. So probably around 3 years. So I want to use my time to serve Ghana.
And Mrs. Naomi, Japan has done this so well, hasn't they?
Yes.
What was the education process like to get people to buy into the idea of even separating waste from, shall we say, source?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think it's to do with education. So we teach our kids at school how important it is, and learn from our history, and parents telling children not to throw rubbish in the street. I mean, I have 2 sons, and I kept on saying whenever they have a piece of candy, that wrapping they put in their pocket and take home with you. And then when I wash it, I will dispose of it properly. So it has to do a lot with education. But on every level of society, I think from adults down to children, we have to be aware. It's education for children as well as adults. And we have to see where this waste is going and how we,
Is this something we need a lot of money to do? Because when we talk about bringing solutions, the first thing that comes to mind for some people, how much is this going to cost us?
Perfect. Thank you very much. My colleague, Professor Shaima Romani from UNU Merit, the other co-moderator of this webinar, will present an opening remark. But before we do that, may I ask the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assembly, the MMDAs present with us today, to share their 2023 action plan on sanitation in the chat box to be read after the question and answer session. So please share your action plan, and our colleague, kindly Jem from the Eco Club, will collect your action plans, and we will have 3 of them read after the end of the question and answer session. Take the floor, Professor Shaima, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. I'd like to first thank all the organizers for having invited me. So it is appropriate because you as Webster University, apparently, I mean, from what I hear, I found that you were featured in Newsweek very recently, and you are making a lot of efforts to prove that universities can go green. And of course, Japan, as the TV commentator rightly pointed out, is a leader, is a champion in sanitation at large, and especially waste segregation and waste management. So I'm sure all our participants, including myself, starting with myself, are going to learn a lot. Now, I'm wearing 2 hats when I speak this, because I also run an NGO. I adopted a village after the tsunami of 2004, and that has really brought me in touch with real problems and trying to apply knowledge to solve real problems. So this presentation owes a lot to both. So I flipped from one world to another, and I think they're very complementary, and you can create synergy. So I would advise all academics to also get out there in the field. Okay, so now let's look at Ghana's record. It has done very well as compared to the average region in Africa in reducing the death rate. Already we see that the death rate started from a very high percentage, and then it has really fallen, but it has not come down to the world level yet. There needs to be more work. Now, then if we look on the other hand at the share of the population using safely managed sanitation facilities, Ghana is not doing so well. That is, you see, the there are various kinds of sanitation systems, and all unsafe ones, while serving the purpose of eliminating open defecation, is actually contaminating the environment. So on the one hand, you're providing dignity to people, and on the other hand, you are contaminating the environment and contaminating the water sources, so that in the end, health is going to fall. So this is where we see that Ghana needs to do much better in terms of looking at safety also. Now, this is not a problem with Ghana alone. I find that throughout the public agency platform, there is talk of water and sanitation. So you see, as you can see, one can question oneself. What is this kind of a representation of the sanitation and water and sanitation problem? Does it do justice to sanitation? Now, it doesn't. It doesn't, because really this is a photo of a bunch of ladies with pots on their heads. There is no toilet in sight. Are people supposed to defecate in the pond behind the ladies? Now, this is the same kind of prevalence that I find even in academic scholarship. Now, toilets are not given the same respect as water. And so I always say there seems to be a favoritism wherein sanitation is treated really like a stepchild, like Cinderella, because the focus is on water, but unless we move to safe sanitation, the water is also going to get contaminated. And we will be doing it for cross ends. It will not have the best impact. Now, if we move further, as the Japanese invitee, Madam, said, there is a huge opportunity to make value from waste in multiple forms. For that, of course, we need to start with waste segregation so that we can lower the cost of creating value. And it is laudable that this webinar is going to feature not people who are talking about what can be done, but actually what they have managed to do. So I look forward to hearing all the speakers. And then what we were thinking is that, you see, this is now becoming a fashion in many developed countries, incentivizing people to dispose of waste in a proper way so that they get money for returning these. A few kiosks like this have been put in India. Somehow they have not worked in the long run. They get vandalized, the machines break down. It just doesn't seem to be working. Now, that's why I hope to learn more from the Ghanaian experience of how this kind of recovery of plastic is happening. It would be very good. And as the previous speaker said, provide a model for all the developing world, because this experiment is not working in many places. Lastly, I want to say for all of us, we are living in a world where we are data obsessed. And we need evidence, evidence-based targets, evidence-based policy, evidence-based academic articles, evidence-based consultancies. So the real problem is that a lot of times we don't have we don't have data, we don't have the right data, we don't have correct data, and sometimes there's so much data, we do not know which data to use. So data is not user-friendly, and incorrect data or incomplete data can lead to bad decisions. So this kind of data management is very important, and I was happy to note that this webinar is to trigger a sharing of data on the part of all municipalities, so that it can be there can be a shared vision built. And I guess this is it. And I hope that I have put some questions, thrown up some questions, issues that will be addressed in the webinar to come. And I will stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we come to our three speakers. Each one of them will talk for 15 minutes. That will be followed by the question and answer sessions for 20 minutes. And then we will have short brief from the MMDs, which we're looking forward to their contribution as well. So our first speaker will speak about Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG 6, waste and sanitation, from the perspective of updates on progress made on sanitation. Our speaker is Mr. Dominic Aboji, and he's from Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, Ghana. The floor is yours, Mr. Aboji, and you have 15 minutes.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Engineer Dominic Aboji, and I'm doing this presentation on behalf of Mr. Samson Akwete, who is the Director of Sanitation at the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. So let me quickly share my screen so that my slides can be visible. Please, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you very much. Presentation is clear as well. Thank you.
All right, so as we all know, sanitation falls on SDG 6, and SDG 6 talks about ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And so if you look at the details of the SDG 6, is accompanied by 8 targets to help achieve this goal. And these 8 targets are also measured by 11 indicators. And so this presentation is to throw some statistical light on Ghana's achievements since the SDGs came into effect somewhere January 2016. And so I think Professor Sharma enumerated some of the targets within SDG 6. And so I won't really belabor the point of taking us through the list of the 6 targets. And so if you look at the first target, it talks about achieving universal and equitable access to safe water, and I mean drinking water for all. And Ghana has had the benefits of having a recent population and housing census, and so that gives us reliable data to assess our progress and our impacts within these areas in connection with the SDGs. And so in terms of water supply, countrywide has increased from 79% since 2017 to 87.7% in 2021. But in breaking this down to rural and urban perspectives, you will find out that in terms of urban areas, we have made an increase from 93% in terms of water supply services to 96% in 2021, 96.4% to be a bit exact. But in rural areas, or in rural settings, we have increased from 68% from 2017 to 74.4% in 2021. So generally look at from the national perspectives, it looks a bit good, but the rural areas are a bit lagging behind in terms of achieving this particular target. Now, the second target talks about ending open defecation, with special attention being given to the needs of women, children, and those in vulnerable situations. And so if you look at the GSS data for 2021, access to improve or basic household toilet has increased from 21% in 2017 to 25.3% in 2021. Quite a marginal increase over there. And now, when you talk about a population with access to improve or basic household toilet facilities in urban areas, I always want to compare urban to rural areas for us to make sure we get the national drift. It has increased from 25% in 2017 to 29% in 2021. And then in the rural perspective, it has increased from 17% in 2017 to 19.4% in 2021. Now, in terms of open defecation, the statistics puts it as being reduced marginally from 22% in 2017 to 17% in 2021. For the third target, which talks about improving water quality, reducing pollution at all levels, the first indicator here talks about proportion of wastewater which is safely treated. And in this indicator, let me state that we are still in the process of reconciling a lot of information to arrive at that. So currently, we don't have the progress made so far. But on the side of proportion of water bodies with good ambient water quality, it has increased from 51.5% in 2017 to 58.2% in 2021. Now, on the fourth target, which talks primarily about increasing water use efficiency and freshwater supplies, we realize that currently, for the first indicator, we are still also in the process of reconciling a lot of data in assessing the progress made so far. But the levels of water stress, and when I say this, I mean freshwater withdrawal as a proportion of available freshwater resource, we realize that freshwater resources per capita, which provides the average volume of water available to each individual in the country. And by that, we have 1,725 cubic meters as at the end of 2021. And as a country which is supposed to be rich in freshwater supplies, just unfortunately that incidence of galamsey and other things have really reduced the availability of some of these resources. But we can do more than even 1,700 cubic per capita per year. And so for the fifth target, which also talks about the fact that we have to implement integrated water resource management at all levels. And this includes transboundary cooperation as well. And this is measured in the degree at which we are implementing these integrated resources in water management. And according to IWRM, as of December 2021, it stands at 57%. But the data on the proportion of transboundary basin area with operational arrangement for water cooperation is yet also to be established nationwide. So the last target that I will talk about talks about the fact that we have to protect and restore water-related ecosystems, including mountains, forests, wetlands, rivers, aquifers, and lakes, and what have you. And in this indicator, because of the fact that it's also being implemented by cross metropolitan agencies, ministerial, cross-boundary issues, we are also still in the process of reconciling a whole lot of data in order to establish the progress on this target also so far. So thank you so much for your attention. This is just by way of update on the progress that Ghana has made so far in prosecuting the agenda of the SDGs, which ends by 2030. And thank you very much for your attention, and I remain for any further discussion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raboji. And yes, please stay with us for the discussion session for the question and answer session. Thank you for the presentation. And one thing that you've said, which has affected me a lot, coming from NGOs and coming from a little island that used to be called the land of immortality, because we have water abundant all over the island, actually the island of Bahrain. We were blessed with water. Water will just come from the ground. That's why we had the great civilization of Delman, which is thought to be one of the oldest civilization on earth. But unfortunately, we cannot talk about this now. When you talked about how rich Ghana is in its water supply, the fresh water supply to start with, but then how much challenges you're facing now. This definitely take us to what you said at the end about the protection and restoration of water-related ecosystems. We wish you all the best in the work in this direction. It's very important, not just for Ghana, but for Mother Earth. Thank you, Mr. Obaji. And this takes us to the second speaker, who will take us about resource recovery on campus, setting the pace to become a model center. Mr. Julius Johnson Botchway, a research analyst from the College of Education, University of Ghana Legon, is our second speaker, and we're looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours, Mr. Botchway, and you have 15 minutes.
My name is Julius Jason Botchway.
Sorry, can you put it on presentation mode, please? Julius, can you put it on presentation mode? Click here. Yeah.
Okay. I work at the Institute for Environment and Sanitation Studies in the University of Ghana, not the College of Education. And I am an environmental education expert and the team leader of the university's plastic recycling project. I'll be talking to you about the university's recycling project as a model for institutionalizing waste management in academic and educational institutions. So I'll basically walk us through the consumer behavior and then waste management behaviors in Ghana. Also, just take a snapshot at the waste management hierarchy. And then I tell you what the university's recycling program does, what we have to show so far, the impacts, and then tracing the plastics that we have recovered within the years. I also have a few revelations to share, and then some challenges and plans as well, after which we can engage with a Q&A session. So these are the mechanisms of waste management generally in Ghana. We have these skip containers in communities and municipalities where people dump their waste. A few people also practice open burning. A good number of people also landfill their waste. When you go to the remote or peri-urban communities, they do backyard dumping. And then also in the slums, we usually see tricycles that we have named Bola taxis in Ghana. We have the compactor truck also doing some work, but this is basically for communities with very good layouts like these estate and residential areas. The waste management hierarchy is quite interesting. You realize for us to do anything close to reuse, recycle, or recovery, we need to have the waste segregated. So that places the act of waste segregation as a very essential component of this circular economy journey. The University of Ghana Plastic Recycling Project has 4 main objectives. The first one, we want to instill a culture of source segregation among every member of the university community. And then we also wish to provide a model for managing plastic waste like we have right now. We piloted this since 2018 to come by very hardcore data and toolkits as to how to make this happen. And I'm happy to say we are on the road to institutionalizing waste segregation because we have learned a lot from the activity so far. We are also looking at setting up a recycling factory to process the waste in-house instead of what we are doing at the moment, which I'll walk you through in a bit. We have a number of activities as part of the UGPRP, which is University of Ghana Plastic Recycling Project. The Education and Awareness Creation Unit has several mechanisms. We engage students at the lecture halls. We do room-to-room engagements in the evenings when lectures are finally over. And then when there are university programs, we are often featured to give talks to the students with respect to waste management. We also have segregation at source, and I always say our dustbins are unique. We don't use a conventional dustbin because, like I said, we studied this program a lot, and one of the findings is that there are some specific criteria that a recycling dustbin must meet in the Ghanaian university campus. You cannot use a conventional dustbin and get the same results. So we went for dustbins that are a bit translucent or transparent, let me say. So you see, these are baskets, but we use them for segregation for very good reasons, which I will work at. We also have modified baskets to assist the visually impaired students. We have a number of visually impaired students, and our program is an all-encompassing program. We try not to leave anyone behind. So we tie these fractions of plastic waste on the baskets to tell you this is what you're supposed to put in. So even if you are visually impaired, just by touching the baskets, you can find out what you're supposed to put where. We also have these structures. This is the only one of its kind in the country. We have about 35 of them on the university campus, which we use for waste segregation. We designed this and made them ourselves in-house. Also, another component of the program is we transport whatever we have collected on a daily basis, and then we obtain real-time data. So I am able to tell you how much plastic waste we collect in a given day on campus, in a given week, in a given month, and even in a given corridor or a given student hostel. From there, we store them at a place we call our plastic bank. It's a temporary storage place where we keep all these plastics until we have a very appreciable quantity, and then recycling companies come for them for further processing. I will walk us through where our plastics can be found in a bit. So basically, the University of Ghana Plastic Recycling Project is made up of these activities: segregation at source, then transfer, and then storage, which we also prioritize data recording because it is very essential. Data is very key to our program because we are able to say, okay, for this student hostel, we are not getting very good data, so we have to intensify education. So essentially, the data is helping us with what we are supposed to do and where we are even supposed to do it, and even the intensity at which we are supposed to do it. And then we sell to recycling companies. For now, we do not process. And then at the center of everything, we have education, because that is the lifeblood of the project. So far, we have engaged about 750 student volunteers to be multipliers. We have our volunteers coming from the background of political science, now studying environmental engineering because of the program. We have our volunteers moving into full-blown environmentalists just because of the involvement in the program. And then there are a number of volunteers who are also setting up their own recycling projects wherever they are. So I say the impact with volunteers have been quite tremendous. We have saved a landfill space of about 54 meter cube. This data was put together somewhere 2020, and now we have over 70,000 students in the university campus. So because of this project, we have offered over 70,000 students infrastructure to segregate their plastic waste. Also, we have engaged over 1,400 people, making up of 343 homes within the university campus. And then we've also made some cost saving. You know, conventionally, when you mix all the waste, you dispose them off in one dustbin, you pay for waste transportation, you pay for landfilling and all this. Because of we recovering a very good fraction of the waste from the general waste stream, we have been able to save about $5,000 as of 2020, and there's been more. And then we also established the idea of waste as a resource on the university campus. I say this because we have thieves stealing waste from our dustbins in the University of Ghana, because we've been able to project that it is not waste, it is actually a resource once you get them segregated. So tracing our plastics, we have our water sachets being used by trashy bags for these beautiful sachets and laptop bags, shopping bags, and more. We also have our PETs, the PET, the polyethylene bottles being used as pavement blocks and building blocks by North Plus. Yes. There's a 3-bedroom house he has built with plastics that he recovered. So we are proud of these efforts. We also have Mini Plus, who directly convert the plastics into furniture, tables and chairs and buckets and other things like this. We also engage CESA and other companies who either pelletize or crush the plastics, and then these are exported to other countries. They come back in the form of football jerseys and sneakers and what have you, like you see on my screen. Yes, the Barcelona jersey is made out of just 9 plastic bottles. Yeah. So we have some revelations based on being very close to our data. We realize that females are a bit more efficient in segregation than their male counterparts. We also see that segregation bins do much better when they are in the open locations than in discrete locations. Then very few students actually know about climate change and recycling. And there's also a very huge potential to improve plastic waste management in Ghana, because at the university campus, we are recovering about just 9%, but it's a huge chunk of waste if you ask me. And then the challenges speak for themselves. There is always inadequate infrastructure because we are talking about 70,000 students here. It's like a whole community on its own, if not for a region. We also struggling with a bit of compliance. Not everybody is in bed with the idea of we having to segregate our waste. And then because we also do not have a state-of-the-art recycling facility, we are forced to offload whatever we recover to other off-takers, which is not closing the circular economy loop. Talking about problems too, we have a recycling bin to student ratio of 1,500 students to one dustbin, which is not efficient. So that drums down the point of inadequate infrastructure. There is plan to intensify the education and awareness to achieve a sustainable consumption goal. We wish to acquire more recycling bins. We are in the process of institutionalizing environmental education as a required program in the university, and also waste segregation as a conventional practice. We want to start our own value addition and processing. We also engage in schools within the university community. And then we also want to pilot the extended producer responsibility by having people get money or souvenirs back for recycling their waste. So this is the last thing I always say in every talk that I do, that proper waste management is expensive, but improper waste management is even more expensive, just that the currencies are quite different. So we need to put in our all to make sure that we go with the proper waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julius Jason Buchway, a research assistant from University of Ghana Legon, indeed. Thank you very much for sharing your experience of resource recovery on campus, which is a very interesting application of circular economy, and in particular of resolve approach. And thank you for testifying for the female efficiency as well. Yes, indeed, waste is a resource. And it seems like you have managed to convince people of this, not only by recruiting 700 volunteers, which is congratulations for doing this, but also of approaching and reaching to a wide spectrum of the society to the limit that you made people think of waste as a treasure to feel. This is amazing. I think this is one of the most interesting statements I ever heard in circular economy. And last but not least, congratulations for the inclusion of the education for inclusion in the curriculum. This is, I think, one of your greatest achievements, because once that this is part of the curriculum is the moment that you have created a system that runs on its own. So as we always say in our NGO, we establish NGOs, we give it our best, we give it all the time that we can, but we know we have a limited time to live on this earth. But once it goes into the education, once it goes into the curriculum, then this is the amazing achievement. Mr. Bochway, what you said is music to my ear. It's amazing. I wish that we have more time to learn about this experience, but maybe in the future. So thank you very much.